people will say that it's hard to get work in entertainment or theater and things like that. And it's not really true. It's just a question of how you define the job. I have to think about what we have the capacity to do, whether it's budget, time, labor, but also what students I have. Do I have this many, whatever, leading man types or people who are legit belters or opera singers, whatever it is,
Right.
Whatever kind of person from whatever cultural background, from whatever gender, from whatever, it's the same thing. It's always about people and humans and experiences. And so that's just packaging, it's whatever package we come in. And so tell your story because it's a human one.
When I was 5, I lived with my mother and father and older brother.
At least I could draw, I told myself.
It was just me, my cats, and my imagination.
Created protective cover, just enough where he could keep his underwear on.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to In Other Words podcast. I'm Pam, and these are my co-hosts, Jan, Val, and Karen. And tonight we have guest William Symington. William is a theater artist and educator with more than 3 decades of experience in scenic design, production management, and arts administration. After serving in multiple leadership roles at Arizona State University, he helped launch Grand Canyon's University College of Fine Arts and Production, where he has guided curriculum development, designed facilities, and mentored students across theater, film, and live entertainment. He has overseen more than 200 productions and remains dedicated to preparing the next generation of creators for an evolving industry. William, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. That was quite an introduction. I feel overwhelmed by it.
Well, it's impressive. It's impressive.
It is. Very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so.
It's wild to hear about 3 decades of your life so quickly,
Right. Yeah.
I have a friend in Santa Barbara. Her last name is Symington. Her first name's Ann. You have any relatives in Santa Barbara?
Not that I'm aware of, though I might just because the name is so rare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, we come across them here and there. So.
Oh, cool.
Well, let's go back to the beginning a little bit. So when we were in college together as theater majors and stuff, how did you envision after you graduated with your undergrad degree? Did you always know that you wanted to be working in theater, which we know it isn't for the big bucks, just like being a writer isn't for the big bucks. So how did you know, and what avenue of approach did you take to do that?
Well, for me, that's quite a question. When I started college, where we went to college together, I was actually an English major, and that didn't last very long. Being young, instead of changing schools, thinking maybe it was just that program that didn't fit me, but I still wanted to stick with English or something, I just changed majors. And I did that a couple more times. I just couldn't figure out where to land. I'd always done artistic stuff, but I was also kind of good at math. My dad's a math guy, and I just didn't know where I was going to land. And in one moment, I was an art major. And as you recall, back at our school, the art department and the theater were in the same building. And I was hanging out one night, and a bunch of theater students came out and said, "We really need help painting this set. It's never going to get done." It was Guys and Dolls, I believe. "And you guys are artists and stuff. Can you come help?" And so I went in. And by the way, some of those folks I'd gone to high school with because it was in the same town where I went to high school. So I'd known them for a while in my life. And just hanging out that night, we had such a good time. And someone, and I can't remember who, but somebody convinced me to take an acting class. And I'd never done anything like that. I'd done choir and some speech and debate and stuff like that, but not really any serious acting at all in high school. And I took that first class and I fell in love with it. And I think I found where I was supposed to be. And you remember our program was incredibly hands-on. You mentioned working, that you worked mostly backstage and so forth, but I did a little bit of both all along. And I got more and more comfortable with working backstage and building the sets and helping with that creative process and hanging lights. And I'll never forget, our department chair pulled me aside my senior year. And, I went to college a bit longer than most because I switched majors a bunch. And I was getting married later that year. And he said to me, I think you're a pretty good actor, but, that doesn't necessarily mean anything in terms of your prospects or whatever. What do you think you want to do with your life? And we all had to take this sort of business of theater type class where we had to send out applications to like graduate schools or apply for jobs or whatever. And I decided to apply to schools based on my technical theater background. So as a designer and a technician, mainly like a TD, like a technical director. And I was accepted to 4 graduate programs. 2 were in the Midwest where I didn't want to be anymore. I wanted to move and get closer to maybe where this stuff happens. One was way too expensive, and one was Arizona State University.
Mm.
And they gave me a full ride teaching assistantship. And teaching, by the way, had been percolating under a little bit for me the whole time. Whatever I was going to do, I felt like I wanted to maybe teach. And so that end of that year, my wife and I moved to ASU to Tempe, Arizona, and I was a TA and just fell deeper and deeper in love with it. I was in school with people who were immensely talented and incredibly driven, that had much more, let's say, worldly experiences than me, that have been out in the world more, that have done more. And I knew that I just had to work hard, to keep up with them and catch up. And I did. And so that's kind of how it all started, was the opportunity to go to a really huge school that had a lot more in terms of facilities and resources, and also all these other people that I could see the world through, that I learned from, and incredible graduate mentors that connected me with my first design jobs and tech jobs and stuff like that. And I've been working professionally now in Arizona for 33 years.
Oh
Since.
my gosh.
Right.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it is.
So
to,
cool.
to have it all come together so rather nicely when you're still, I'm assuming, your 20s. Because for most of us, I don't think it happens that way.
No.
I part of it too was I'm a first gen. My mom's an immigrant from South Korea, married my dad when he was in the military. And so, going into the arts may sound like a strange choice to be like a secure thing. But it's why I went into the technical aspects, because I thought, well, technical skills, there might always be a job. Someone will always need me, and maybe it won't pay a fortune, but it seems relatively secure. And then if I had teaching to that, maybe I can get a good steady position and work my way up. And that was always my plan. And that's kind of what happened. I mean, I feel incredibly blessed in that regard, that over the years, I was able to sort of matriculate up within the academic system and having opportunities. And also, I mentioned my first mentor, where Val and I went to school, but I had bosses who were mentors too, coworkers, but older with more experience, that were happy to show me the way and teach me some things and recommend me. And that's super invaluable. I mean, I don't think anybody gets anywhere without a lot of help. So.
Oh no, I agree with you. You need to. It has to happen along the ways through teachers or mentors or bosses or whomever. Yeah, it's important. Yeah.
As far as what kind of, that's fascinating, because that's kind of linear, and that's crazy, because I know my life has not been linear, but I mean it's wonderful, everybody's different experiences and things that happen. So as far as, so you're teaching, you get this great job, and stuff. How do you have the students be involved in any of the type of scripts that you want to do, or how do you come up with the scripts and the kind of work that you want to do? And because it is a representation of what's important to you as the teacher and the students, and what kind of, I guess, human topics do you like to talk about, to use your voice to share about what's going on in the world?
Sure. Well, I guess sort of finishing the background then, because it speaks to it. in my early career, I was a technical director, so I was building other people's designs. So I didn't really have a lot of input creatively, but I was a technician. And then I had a mentor along the way who knew that I wanted to design too and kind of have a creative voice. And so he started having me design some of the main stage shows. Eventually he retired and I took over his position where I was designing and then running production, where I actually had a voice in how shows were done, but you still have a director, right? And you have an artistic director. And then I worked my way up. And when I switched from Arizona State University to Grand Canyon, when I came to Grand Canyon, it was to become the chair of the theater department and the assistant dean of theater and dance and the artistic director of the theater program. So for the first time, 16 years ago, I had a say in what you're talking about. In other words, I got to choose what shows we were doing, why, building seasons. You're still serving your audience. And in university theater, you're serving more than that. I have to think about what we have the capacity to do, whether it's budget, time, labor, but also what students I have. Do I have this many, whatever, leading man types or people who are legit belters or opera singers, whatever it is,
Right.
the appropriate parts. And then additionally, I have to think about their 4 years with me here and with us. What do they get over the course of that 4 years? And then what do they get over the course of one season? If you do a musical, do you do a comedy? Do you do Shakespeare? Do you do a classic? Do you do something new, emerging? Do you develop new works? Do you do a little bit of all of it so they get a really broad education? And that's what we try to do. Currently at the university where I am, it's a Christian university, so there's that framework here. And then also I have to think about my student body. And also what the audience wants to see. While selling tickets isn't preeminently the issue for us, we're not a profit-making endeavor in this educational setting. It's still good to have full audiences. It offsets our costs. It's good for the kids. It's great for the students. Yeah. Full audience, So to really answer your question at long last, we have a student advisory council. They get together and talk about what kind of shows they want to do and what they'd like to be a part of. Obviously, diversity and representation is part of that, making sure that we are, as much as possible, doing stories that our students connect with and represent them and give them opportunity in all of the various ways that they might need that opportunity. We're not able to accommodate all of those things. It kind of depends. Again, there are a lot of shows at any university that you can't necessarily do because of content or whatever. I remember back when I produced primarily opera, for instance, we often couldn't do Otello because the lead role, I think, is a baritone. And
you've got to have a baritone.
And most 19-year-olds aren't there yet. They haven't grown into that voice yet. And so there's that. But so it's a lot of things to consider. One thing that I started as soon as I was able to make the choice is that I work with all of my faculty and staff as a committee because their input is really important as well. I want their opinions, their points of view on practical issues, cost, logistics, all those sorts of educational goals, but also, I can't read all the plays. I read a lot, but they see things that I don't see. Something is important to them that they really want to advocate for or whatever. So we start our conversation about a year in advance. So for instance, when school starts here the 1st of September, I will be talking about year 2027 and 28. We'll be talking about.
Oh, right. Of course. You have to be that far ahead.
We do. Yeah. And we start out with 200 shows.
Oh my gosh.
And we do 4 or 5. So we take this huge number and then we go through all that criteria that I mentioned. And then on top of that, we even have to think about things like marketing and does the season have a through line or theme or something or, et cetera. So there's a lot of things to consider. This year, we're opening the season with Clue. But to give you a perfect example, and this is a great example, we originally chose The Play That Goes Wrong. It's a huge hit right now, but looking at our staffing and our current student body, our labor, our time, we just recognized that it was going to kill everybody to produce it.
Well,
and
say that again. What was it you originally chose? What was it?
The Play That Goes Wrong.
Okay, that's the name of the play.
Yeah. And so it's a murder mystery being put on by a company where they can't get it right. Everything falls apart.
Okay.
It's full of special effects. It's hysterical.
It sounds like it.
Yeah, lots of major companies are doing it. But logistically, we have the capability, the knowledge, the technology, but we really just don't have, to be perfectly honest, the time and the labor to do it in a way that is fair to the staff and to our students. And so we chose Clue, which has some of that. It's actually very similar, but it's going to allow us to pull it off. The second main stage show, we have a theater that seats about 310. So that show will be there. The second show that will be in that space in the spring is Crazy for You. So classic kind of golden age piece, very elevated, the kind of thing that maybe a lot of our younger Gen Z students aren't that familiar with necessarily, even theater kids. And so it's incredible to introduce them to a classic. It's got gorgeous orchestration. I have an amazing music director. It'll have an orchestra that performs live with the cast. And so that's very much a different kind of thing. And then I have a black box studio theater that seats 50 to 75.
Oh my goodness.
Laboratory style, flexible.
Right.
And we're doing Songs for a New World, which is a fairly modern sort of cycle of song pieces. It's loosely woven together, but it's more like it's almost like a little night music versus a story that has a real plot, if you will.
Yeah.
It's just sort of separate pieces put together, but very modern. Will be modern dress, really speak to young people. And then the final show, we're doing something that's very, in some ways, academic. We're doing The Bald Soprano by Ionesco, which is surrealist piece. It's perfectly suited for a small space where I don't have to worry about selling hundreds of seats, but we can get weird. And
exactly.
And it's educationally really valuable. And for those that know, people will go and really enjoy it. We did Diary of Anne Frank in that small black box the year before for a totally different reason. We wanted that experience to be intense and intimate. And so we have a couple of spaces we perform in. And then we also do live streaming and live performances in an event we call Friday Night. That's a live streaming studio that we actually built a couple of years ago. That's comedy and sketches and music and that sort of thing. So that's kind of our performance season. And then there's also musical. We do hundreds of concerts. We also have dance performances and that sort of thing, but that's primarily for theater.
How do you fit it all in?
Yeah.
We are busy.
Yeah, I would imagine just constant. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
we used
gosh.
to do five. We used to do 5 main stage shows, plus 2 studio, plus dance. So we used to do 9, but just logistically and everything like that, we've dialed back quite a bit. And we've also diversified to meet the world where it is now, which is why we're doing streaming and broadcast and some other things like that, so that our students are more prepared for the workforce that they're going into. So.
Well, I also know, putting any production on the stage, things go wrong at the last minute, and the kids learn how to. I mean, there's so much they learn from pulling it off, and fixing things at the last minute. And my grandson was in an art school where he was in the drama part of it. He was an actor, but I think he liked the backstage stuff even more, and the things that would go wrong at the last minute, and these kids had to pull it off, and they would it was a miracle.
I know a few years ago that Josh Groban was speaking and talked about hire theater kids, right? Hire theater kids. And I don't know if you saw that, but it's actually one of my mantras. I'm a huge believer in theater kids' ability to solve problems, to think on their feet, to not panic. The show must go on. And I'm also a big advocate of it outside of theater, meaning, one of the metrics that I find kind of difficult to deal with is people will say that it's hard to get work in entertainment or theater and things like that. And it's not really true. It's just a question of how you define the job. There are so many performers and people from tech theater and all the aspects of production that are just incredible in all kinds of other fields. And it doesn't mean they failed. They failed at the field. They're just using their talents in a different respect.
Right.
And they're incredible employees for all kinds, for those very reasons, right? They're really resilient. And in fact, the workforce that they're looking to coming up is one that's able to pivot and change very quickly, because industries are going to change really quickly. And I think theater people are really actually very practiced at that. So
my experience with these kids was exactly that. And we did a fundraiser at my house where we put on a play and they were singing, and we were just putting it all together. But it happened to be thunderstorming that night, and we were serving dinner. Anyway, the kids all stayed calm, and they were learning lines at the last minute. And I am telling you, and they pulled it off. And I was just awed by they're young, and the way they knew each other, and they were in and out, and keep telling me, don't worry, calm down. I was just, oh my God. but it was the kids.
Yeah, there's nothing like a bunch of theater students 15 minutes before curtain. So
It's true. It's true.
Wow.
Yeah.
Bill, do you have any, yeah, right, 15 minutes. You learn to think on your feet very, very quick when things go wrong. Absolutely. You forget half your lines and you got to make up stuff to get them back to that point where you're supposed to be.
I think I blew my fair share of lines on stage where we went to school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you, from the writing aspect of it, do you have like any plays in your drawer that you've been working on for 30 years that you'd like to see put into production, or have you written a play that's you've put on at the college?
So I haven't. It's interesting. I wrote a short play that was performed at our college. Our chairperson, back when you and I were in school together, did a thing called Prairie Playwright Festival. And he got us scholarships over the summer to produce a season of these shows. And I wrote an original play called Circle. And it was about friends in college, and you write what you know. And it was an incredible experience, and I was really proud of it. And because I was an English major to begin with, I thought I would write a little more, but my creative expression over the last 30 years has come out primarily as a designer. I draw and paint and make sets. I do a fair amount of writing when I write new courses and things like that, which I'm supposing might, for some people, sound boring, but I really love it, actually.
Yeah.
We have a student playwright right now, a young man that we are vetting one of his first plays. And we are probably going to do a staged reading of it this year. Depending on how that goes, it may be fully produced here as well. We have a playwriting course. And so we have had a number of students produce shows here, original works. So I guess to kind of answer you, I think I've found my joy in helping them find their voice and put it out there that way. And I take a huge joy in being able to tell their story. Well, and that's another thing I get to do a lot of, which is tell the stories of our students and their successes and their learning process. And so I do a lot of writing in that way. There's also a part of me that thinks that as I get older towards retirement and that sort of thing, I may revisit some of those other things. I've thought about coming back to directing and coming back to writing later on. Right now, I'm a producer and administrator, so my life is insanely busy.
Yeah, it sounds like you're really completely.
But I've thought about coming back to that. I certainly have. I mean, and there's also part of when you get to a certain age where you've got some stories to tell.
Yeah.
And I've got a few, so you never know.
Yeah. Well,
you've
I
like
would,
overseen more than 200 productions now. Do you have one that like really pushed you creatively? And if you did, why?
It's I did 245 as of last year.
oh my gosh.
Wow.
I
And
mean, that's a lot.
Oh my
yeah,
God.
and
Wow.
it runs the gamut from opera, musical theater, um, lots of plays, obviously, some
Yeah.
television, some film. Um, my students will often ask if I have a favorite or something like that. And over the years, that's really hard to answer because, you'll fall in love with one that's really close, recent, for instance, like that you've
Yeah.
done recently.
Yeah.
I have a few, and they're kind of from different eras or from different, even, different ways I served the show. Like years ago, almost 30 years ago, I did a version of Cabaret.
Oh, fun.
One of my mentors from graduate school designed it. I just built it, but it was incredibly affecting and moving. It's a story that just, I watched it over and over again. I went to, oftentimes by the time my show opens, I've seen all the rehearsals, I've seen dress week. I go to opening, and then by then I've seen it 8 or 9 times. That's about as much as I want. And that show I saw several more times over the course of its performance because it was so moving. I think here as a designer, one of the most affecting shows I ever did was Who Will Carry the Word? If you don't know it, it was written by a Holocaust survivor, a woman who was in a French woman who was in a constant all-female concentration camp. And the play takes place entirely in the barracks and the yard of a concentration camp. And so I designed the set in a way where the end of the stage, the apron of the stage, had the electrified fence and the wire, and the audience had to watch the show through the electrified fence.
Oh.
And the student actors were, costumed incredibly. It looked very real, dirty and haggard.
Yeah.
We built the bunks, and I will tell you that it was one of the only times where building the set at moments almost made me physically sick because
Yeah. Yeah.
what they represented. You know what I mean? It was we had a Holocaust survivor. Our director brought in a Holocaust survivor to speak to the students. And even though these were kids I had in class every day, I knew what they looked like every day in their Crocs and their jeans
Yeah.
and whatever. When they were on stage playing those parts, there were several moments in the show that are written in the show where the guards, and you never see the guards, you never see anyone else but the prisoners, where the guards shout at them over the loudspeakers, turn to the front, stand at attention. And these young actors were so good that they would stare straight out at the audience, gaunt and shaking and trying to hold their sick, thin bodies up. It was almost more than you could take. It literally, talking about it, literally, it would bring me to tears every single night. It was just, and knowing the gauntness was makeup.
Yeah.
Knowing the dirt was makeup. Knowing that the set was that I made it. That everything was fake, and it reminded me why I love theater so much and why it matters.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I love a musical.
Right,
I love something that's entertainment and fun. But that's going to be one that I'm probably always proud of. And I've done others that I'm proud of, whatever, the beauty or complexity of the design, or maybe something clever, in terms of technology that it did a thing. But it'll always be about the story for me, even as the designer. All My Sons, if you know that one we did a few years ago, that is a tough play as well. We did Little Shop of Horrors last year.
Oh,
The
love
great
that. I love that one.
Had a motorized revolve. We built all the puppets by scratch with students helping build everything. My current technical director is a graduate of mine from here who went on to get his MFA in directing in England at the E17 School of Acting in Essex, and then came back to work for us. So just all kinds of pride there, and just amazing what we did on stage. So, I could probably name a dozen, but those are a couple that really stick out, I guess.
Incredible.
Yeah, it
I always
is.
liked
It's
dramatic. Don't get me wrong, I loved a good musical too, but I love dramatic theater. I love anything that makes you think, that, like a rebirth or a reawakening of your soul, or anything like that. And it sounds like that was your piece that transcended. That was like a culmination of everything your 30 years of teaching in that play through those kids.
I tell you, you get those every once in a while. When I moved to Arizona in '93, I met my professors right off the bat, because I was a TA, so we come back before the undergraduates and stuff. And one of them invited me to a play downtown at a major theater in Phoenix. And so this was the first show I'd ever seen in Phoenix. And it was put on by a company called Child's Play, which is a now almost 50-year-old theater for youth company here in town, started by graduates from Arizona State. I have since worked for them dozens and dozens of times and designed for them, but this is back. I was like 24, never had seen anything in Arizona. And I went to this play. It was called The Yellow Boat, and it was written by the founder of Child's Play, of the company. And it was about his son contracting AIDS from blood transfusion. His son had a blood disorder, and then eventually he passed away. And of course, it's a true story as well. But the staging, the writing, everything about it, the actors and the production. And by the way, all of those actors have since become dear friends of mine, people I've known for decades. And I remember leaning over to my wife and saying, we're in the right place. They do good stuff. I want things like that that matters. So.
Yeah, I agree with, all along, my taste is always veered toward the more dramatic, or the more, even my humor is more dark humor. But a friend of mine invited me into San Francisco to see the Book of Mormon. And I was quite amazed by, it's comedic, but it's also got a lot of depth.
I think some of the best stuff is that way.
Yeah.
I don't know how many of you grew up watching MASH. I did.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But,
Great.
A comedy on the face of it, but then they just sucker punch you with the most intense moments. And I've always loved that.
Me too.
We have a touring Broadway house here, Gamage Auditorium. It was my office for 17 years. It is the last building ever built in Frank Lloyd Wright's lifetime that he designed.
I think I've seen a documentary about that.
Yeah, it's an incredible space, and I was so blessed that was my home office for almost 20 years.
Oh gosh!
Wow.
And I'm a union member, so I got to work on Les Mis and Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and Phantom of the Opera and American Idiot, and just all these shows over the year, these touring Broadway shows over the years, at the same time that I was a teacher in the musical theater opera program. But I had this first row seat backstage at all these incredible Broadway touring shows, and then got the opportunity to work on them in different aspects, and meet touring performers and touring technicians that worked on these shows. And Book of Mormon's a great example. I recently, just this year, saw Hell's Kitchen, which is an incredible true story, and is also just a new modern play, right? That's kind of pop music and hip hop. It's Alicia Keys's kind of coming of age story, and how she made it in the business. And it's just fantastic. And it's got great music, obviously, like you would expect, but it's also really, really moving and well done. So, there's a lot of new work that's still coming out that is all of those things can be fun and you can laugh and then also be very affecting
Right. Yeah.
and important culturally. So, I'm excited. I feel like, well, Hamilton, as we all know, just reinvigorated the whole genre like nothing else. And
Truly did.
watching my students walk around and sing that soundtrack all day long, I thought it probably taught us quite a bit about what Broadway can be and could be and where it's going in the future and what theater is for. And so I'm really excited to see, people always decry the death of theater or whatever. And it's never that. It's just what new mutation it's going to take. And so I'm kind of excited to see what that is and hope to be a little bit a part of it too. So
Very cool.
Yeah, that is. Yeah. It's
Phantom
wonderful.
of the Opera
What
was
was
always
it about Hamilton that broke every? Why did people love it so much? I mean,
well, so when I teach theater history quite a bit, and not just different plays or whatever, but the history of design. And there was a time when theater productions, plays, were meant to be so-called naturalistic. And so you would have a story about a family and it took place in their living room and kitchen and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so on stage, you would expect to see the living room and the kitchen and highly detailed and the furniture just so and the costumes just so and whatever. And it was all supposedly to represent what life is really like, even though we all know what's on stage is nothing like life, really. Yeah. And along came the new stagecraft in the 50s and early 60s that said, no, designers have something to say with their design that can help the story and the feeling and the emotions along without being just representational tool.
Mm-hmm.
right.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you started to get abstract, surrealist, non-realistic play sets and costumes that were not just an outfit or clothing, but something that said something about the character. And that's the tradition I came up in. That's how I was trained as a postmodernist designer.
Right.
And so I love that in Hamilton, for instance, it takes place at dozens of locations. Well, you've all seen the set. It indicates the feeling of the era, lots of wood and rough-hewn stuff, staircases, tables, rough-hewn chairs. But we're never in a formal living room. We're never really outdoors. We're not, right? But the audience, and there's a turntable that doesn't really change the set per se, but helps move the actors around and moves furniture around. And the audience is very willing to say, okay, you've established in the libretto, in the dialogue, what's happening, where we are. Okay, I got it. I believe you. The lighting is there to reinforce emotional value, not just to tell you that it's new, right? The costuming, now in that one, the costuming is a little more literal, but not entirely. Because there's a stocking cap at one point, as I recall. But more and more, the idea of what designers do is to reinforce the emotional values and the story arc and point of view of the production, not to just be literal placeholders for what really happens in life. And that's really exciting. The other thing that changed is musical theater had kind of a established voice and sound for decades and decades and decades, right?
Yeah,
the sort
it did.
of classic musical belter character style, and there's nothing wrong with it, and it's very good. But you're living in a world where we've had hip hop for nearly 50 years.
Right.
Hip hop's not
This is crazy.
Yeah, hip hop and rap are not new,
No.
and so the sort of pop musical or large orchestration big band musical is a little bit of a relic to some degree.
Yeah.
And then we've done enough rock and roll musicals. We've done a good bit of that. It was hip hop's turn. I think it still is. And then wherever we're going, quite frankly, from here.
Yes.
But I think the idea was the different singing style.
Singing style had a lot to do with
Yeah,
it.
it spoke to young people.
Sure.
Yeah, the way that it was written, it wasn't just that he forced the words into hip hop, but that they connected with the emotional value and so forth that he was
Yes.
trying to. So, excuse me.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
You know,
So,
Phantom of the Opera was always one of my favorites. I love Phantom of the Opera. I just do. You know, that's interesting. That's great. You know, I understand what you're saying, how things have changed, things have to change and change for people and characters and students to be able to adapt. I remember, you know, being in theater, you know, in the late 80s, early 90s, and, you know, I felt like you had to be blonde, 5 foot tall, be what, you know, right, and have this beautiful voice to get any female parts. And I was like, this is bull crap, because I wanted to play like more masculine roles. And, you know, and I think that's wonderful that that stuff's changing. You know, that you don't have like, you know, 6 foot tall guy with baritone. I mean, I understand that you have to have some of that. I get it. But I think that it's interesting that other types of students and stuff can see themselves now in these characters. And I think that's important.
well, the way you put it is exactly right. Seeing themselves in these characters. One of the things that we talk to our students about a lot, whether they're playwrights or creators in whatever area, is don't try to please everybody and don't write to everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
First of all, there's no such thing as everybody.
Yeah, you can't. You can't.
But the more specific your story is to you, the more people it will speak to. And that sounds contradictory, but
No, it doesn't to me.
Human emotions are universal. I'll never forget just a few years ago, there was a movie that came out, Minari.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about a Korean family that moves to, I think, Missouri, to a farm to start their lives up. And they're kind of fish out of water and et cetera. And I cried through that whole movie because I'm a half Korean kid that grew up in Iowa. I'd never seen that on screen in my entire life. I was like, how weird it was to have kimchi in the fridge when all my other friends had casseroles. You know,
Yeah.
It just so. And I also think that, you know, we are starting to recognize all of the incredible voices we have in this country and in this world, and that they all have amazing stories that we can all learn from and have feelings about. And you know, you watch Little Mermaid, it's not about being a mermaid.
Not at all.
You know, it's about being human. And so exchange mermaid for whatever kind of person from whatever cultural background, from whatever gender, from whatever, it's the same thing. It's always about people and humans and
True.
and
Yeah.
experiences. And so that's just packaging, you know, it's whatever package we come in. And so tell your story because it's a human one. You know, it's not, I agree. I think that, you know, making a diversified palette is just so much more interesting. And think of how it expands our library. You know, it gives us all of these other stories and perspectives, and yet they're all human. They're all human stories
Yeah.
that we can relate to somehow. So, you know, that's the other thing is you hear people decry like, oh, there's nothing new. Or yes, there is. There's
No,
a lot.
I agree with you. There is.
There is. You just have to give it all a chance. It's one thing that I want to beg audiences for is I love the classics as much as anybody.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time studying them and also more time doing them. But there's new classics. There's new classics to be discovered. Hamilton is already one. It's already
Yeah,
one. You know,
absolutely.
and there's going to be more. We just got to keep looking for them, and we got to keep. You know, you think of your favorite movie that's a classic now. There was a weekend where it came out where no one had seen it before.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
You know, Star Wars at one point was one movie nobody had seen yet. And so
Look at Rocky Horror. I mean, it was a flop.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. When I finished up at ASU, the last show I did at Arizona State University was the Rocky Horror Show.
Nice.
Wow.
I got to
Love
choose
it.
what show I was doing, and I was like, oh my God, I saw it like 50 or 60 times when I was a teenager. Like we would go to the midnight showing and throw the popcorn and all the stuff. And I thought, if I ever get a chance to do this, well, catch this. So I contacted one of my buddies who was an incredible local director, and I said, hey, would you come here and direct this? I'll design it. We'll put it on. We'll even do midnight performances, which we did. A buddy of mine who was a newspaper editor, like, put us on the front page. Like, it was, and we just had a blast, and it was so much fun and such a good show. One of the young men who played Frankenfurter in that, 25 years later, our local theater company, Phoenix Theater Company, was doing Rocky Horror, and the original designer dropped out, and they called me to redesign it.
Oh my gosh.
And guess who was playing Frankenfurter?
Oh my God.
Guy.
No
The
way.
same kid.
I love it.
And so I got to work with the same kid twice and put this show on, and it was just a magical. I have a huge fondness for that show for sure.
Oh, it's the best. Yeah.
You know,
I-
Bill, like you tell, the times are changing and stuff like that, with theater. I went to my great niece was in a play. Forgive me, I can't think of the name of it, but I remember they didn't have enough males to play the parts. So they had like more butchier women playing these parts. And I was like, man, I missed it by 30 years. I mean, I was 34. I was just sitting there thinking, it's so interesting to me how things, like you're explaining, have changed. And it was wonderful. And you know what? The audience, it's what that suspension of disbelief, what is that? That, you know what I mean? Like, if you present it where it's kind of normal, a lot of people will.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Will,
yeah.
they see it as such,
Yeah.
And so
I think we had a theater teacher. I don't know if it was Jenny or I'm trying to think of who it was.
Ed Christensen.
It might have been Eddie that used to say, "Put on your willing suspenders."
Yeah.
But that the most powerful tool that theater producers have is the audience walks into a theater, a live theater, very differently than they walk into a movie. In a movie, they're like, this was millions of dollars. They better convince me this guy's really flying through outer space. In theater, they're like, okay, you got 4 2x4s and a roll of gaffer tape, and this is the set for A Streetcar Named Desire. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. And they're hugely powerful. Now, we are combating that now, though, to some degree, because there's so much more filmed and broadcast media, which is why we instead of trying to compete in that way, which kind of happened in the 90s and early 2000s, the huge productions that tried to out-tech the movies and so forth, it's not that. It's we have to out-human them.
Yes.
So the stories have to connect better. They have to be more original, more diverse, more depth of feeling, more. We have to go where our strength is, and that's where it is.
Yeah.
Speaking of your beautiful settings, like I said, we want to see the slides. Go ahead, Pam.
Hey.
Absolutely. I have my finger on the button.
Wonderful. Look at that.
Now, William, what is this set for? Because I should probably know.
Romeo and Juliet.
This is Romeo and Juliet. Yeah, this is kind of
Okay.
a giveaway shot. Yeah.
Okay. I should have known.
That's yeah. What light through yonder window breaks. Yeah.
That's
One of-
beautiful.
Sorry, I just want to say one of the coolest things I ever saw was my mom and I saw it was Taming of the Shrews set in the 50s.
Yeah.
Like who gets licensed to do that?
Yeah.
Well, the nice thing about Shakespeare is
Yeah.
there's no rights holder,
Yeah. You can do it however you want.
kind of can do it however you want.
Yeah.
That's more complicated with plays that you have to license. We have to pay licensing. Depending on the rights holder, they have a lot of restrictions on changing dialogue or anything like that.
Interesting. Okay.
But Shakespeare does not. And so that, I've done Shakespeare placed in New Orleans during Mardi Gras. I've done
Nice.
it, modernist kind of Matrix-like futures. I've done it all over the gamut. One time I did it in a trailer park.
Oh my God, that's
I love it.
The version you're seeing here is actually fairly classical.
yes.
Believe it or not, we actually just did it last year on an all-black set that was super modernist and very abstract. But this is from a number of years ago. The young lady playing Juliet up on the balcony there now lives in New York City, and the gentleman down there, I think, just had a baby. So this is a few years old. But yeah, this is a classic version that we did, and just the joy to create a highly detailed space that roughly is representative of the period and so forth. But all custom costumes. We had at the time an incredible costumer. We still do, just a different person now. We build about 500 custom costumes a year and add them to our 3,000 in our collection. And all of the sets are custom designed and custom built. Students hands-on build. All the lights are hung and designed per show. So this is all mentored, but student labor. You're seeing that image.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful.
So another Shakespeare. This is we always like to say the Scottish play. This is Macbeth. This is this is modernist and abstract.
Oh my God.
I designed the set to look like a giant crown that had been cracked into pieces.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's like Stonehenge, if Stonehenge was a gold crown that had been broken. This is 22 feet tall. And then custom costumes done with all this amazing applique, an amazing lighting design. We used guns in the show, so we had actual firearms training. The cauldron, there are witches in the show. The cauldron was actually made by putting swords into the stage, and then smoke rises up in between the swords.
Wow.
Nice.
That was a really, really different one. The technical director for this show, a young man named Steven, is now a drafts person for Tate Towers. Tate Towers designs things like Taylor Swift's tour.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
okay.
impressive.
Gosh. That's a whole nother world.
It is, yeah.
This is
love
way back
this.
too. This is The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Nice. Very cool.
It's great.
So, the young lady, the witch in the white costume there, she's an actress in Chicago now and has her own one-woman show and is a writer. The set design is based on, I built a model for the set by cutting trees out of the pages of the book, The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. And so the words are literally
I can see
words.
the writing on the
So
branches.
we hand painted the words from the book onto the trees.
I love it.
Those trees are steel framed. They're 22 feet tall.
Wow.
And one of the coolest things that happened with that show is much of the scenery that happens later on, like all the different places they go, were made of people in morph suits that had the words on the morph suits. And so they became doors and tables and chairs and all of this kind of thing, what added to the sort of magical realism of that story. And it was beautifully lit by
It is gorgeous.
our resident lighting designer, who's a genius. So
Oh, that is stunning.
It is stunning. Yeah.
It is. It's amazing.
Yeah.
and then every once in a while you got to do an old school box set.
Yeah.
This is Agatha Christie's The Mousetrap.
Nice.
Did that in high school. Love this one, Mousetrap. Yep.
Yes. the young lady upstage left that's in the brown suit and red tie. She got her MFA in acting in England.
Uh-huh.
But this set was one of my designs, a classic box set. So it's an interior with a variety of locations. There's a hidden door behind the bookcase, of course.
Ah,
Of course, yes.
The 14-foot tall windows behind that, there was a snowstorm and a tree.
Mhm.
And that's actually where the killer comes in, although you don't know it at the time,
Mhm.
with his skis. Uh,
That's
and,
great.
Yeah, and a fireplace. Just these are fun to do because you can go highly detailed and really create this kind of
Yeah.
rich classic environment. Yeah.
Oh,
Beautiful.
it is. It's wonderful. Oh,
So Bill,
And-
as we're starting to wind down here towards the end. So, are you a big, I got a joke for a minute. I know this is kind of off the cuff, but my nephew, just real quick, are you a big Arizona Cardinals fan? Sorry, guys, I had to ask real quick. Are you an Arizona Cardinals fan?
You know, I've been here a long time, but I'm a transplant.
Okay. I just had to ask because my nephew would be like, "Oh, does he Cardinals?" Anyway, no, those set. I love the line. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm a fan of some of the players. Larry Fitzgerald is a local hero, and I've been in the stadium many times for concerts, but yeah, I follow a variety of teams. Yeah.
Yes.
Nice.
So the school year's like right on top of you here. You're getting ready to go back. So what are you going to be doing this fall and winter? And I know you said what you mentioned it, I think earlier, but what's your curriculum this fall? What are you doing?
So our first show is Clue.
right.
In the fall, I tend to teach. So I teach a course of dance production. We have a dance program, and so many of them will go on to either be teachers or have their own studios. And so they need technology courses to learn about lighting, sound, as costuming, and then also other like video production, and at the very least, how to talk to those people as well, how to talk to designers and technicians. We also teach them a bit about stage and production management because, again, the future of many of the arts is very entrepreneurial. So I teach a course on that. We offer courses in stagecraft, which hasn't changed a lot over the years, which is everything from carpentry to welding to special effects, projection, sound engineering, lighting, etc. Costuming design. I also teach a course called COM 120, which is creativity and communications. And that is a combination of things like marketing, AI as a tool, using creativity as part of your personal branding and using creativity in other fields. So, and then later on in the spring, I teach specific courses on design, advanced design in theater, AutoCAD, computer-assisted drafting and technology and that sort of thing. So,
wow.
It sounds like you are busy. I can't believe it. 245 productions. That's amazing. And it's wonderful to see somebody that I went to school with that followed their initial dream and I found mine later in life, but it's wonderful. It's great, how you see people, and I've watched you over the years, and I was just very, very impressed with everything that you've done, and it's really a great inspiration. But I definitely will. We're going to be watching you. So, all right. Well, thank you so much. That's it for tonight. And
Thanks, William.
You've
I'm
been
so blown away.
me too.
My mom and I had season tickets to South Coast Rep, and we loved almost everything. And I'm just thinking how cool that was because she passed, but we kept.
You always went. You went to a lot of stuff.
Same people, 20 years later. It was very cool. And they also went from a storefront to a real theater.
Well, thank you so much for having me on, and keep all the art and everything that you're making. Keep doing it. We need more of that, and we also need people that love the arts and just, we need that interaction. It's super important. So I really appreciate this. We don't always get a chance to kind of talk about why we do what we do and everything. So that's been a joy. Thank you for
Well,
giving me the opportunity to do that.
it's all
Absolutely.
about promoting the arts, isn't it?
It is. It is.
Yeah, we
Oh
think
And
so.
Thank you.
well, we really, really appreciate you being here with us this evening. This has been an amazing episode, and I love it. I love the fact that, I grew up with theater too, so I think we're all kind of theater kids at heart still, and it's wonderful to see where it's at. It's still out there and it's evolving. So, but yeah, thank you again, and to everyone else, bye for now.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
Bye.